So here
Wow.
I am in California. I didn't have any family in California, but now I have a whole sisterhood,
Mm,
and so um, to be able to be successful, uh, I didn't have a loan. Let's not forget that. I did not have a student loan.
wow.
So I didn't have a student loan. I learned from the beginning because being in a sisterhood, I had a lot of connections. They were making connections. You need to know this person, you need to get to know that person. And someone advised me early on.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Elephant in the Room. I'm joined with my guest, Arba Cooper, entrepreneur, speaker, community leader, actress. The list goes on. Let's get right into it. Where did all that come from?
Thank you, Shaun, first of all, for the opportunity to be on your podcast. It really stems from my childhood with having parents that very supportive, and I was the type of child that I wanted to do everything, try everything, and that's what helped to groom me into the person I am now. I mean, everything from one of the things we didn't even talk about, I even wanted to play trumpet at one time, and then I stopped. This was in high school because I didn't like that it left that ring around my lip. So
Ah,
my parents rented the trumpet and everything, did trumpet, dance, cheerleading, track. So it all stems from having very supportive parents with just letting me explore.
absolutely. You're an explorer. You're also a high achiever and leader. Which family member or event caused that? Where did that come from specifically?
Well, both of my parents, I admire them, and they're still living. They're 86 years old, in good
Congratulations.
health, in a good frame of mind. They are still together, which is, kind of rare too.
Mhm.
Uh, and so they've been married for over 63 years, living in the same home that I was raised in. So, equally, I am definitely my mother and father's child, in that I saw how they were. My father has a ninth grade education. My mother did graduate. They're both from the South, so they definitely had the Southern. I had that Southern experience, or that Southern knowledge of my history, you
Mhm.
know. But they came to the North to make a difference, to have a better life. They both worked for General Motors, and then they retired at 50 because they had a vision of real estate. So they started purchasing real estate for rental, and but they both also had a heart for the underserved or underprivileged. So the properties that they purchased were mainly for people who are on social services, Section 8 kind of housing. And my father is a great handyman, so he would do all of the repairs to the homes, take huge houses and chop them up into different units. And my mom was great with paperwork. So even today, she is not afraid of technology like a lot of older people are. She knows how to do Excel spreadsheets, how to do a Word document. At one time, she had a website that I helped her create for her travel group. So it really comes from them. And it's not, what I'm proud to say is, it's not because they had some great college education. They just had the simple common sense and the good work ethic.
Wow, and that seemed to take them really far. Let's kind of highlight your kind of history a little bit. You went to Howard University, and
Yes.
you also went to Lockport High School. You graduated in 1983. I'm
Oh,
just
you
highlight,
telling on me.
yeah. So
That's okay.
it's been a while, but at the same time, you can see that you've very much had a accomplished education. Do you want to kind of go a little bit more in depth and highlight how that got you to the point where you are now, in being an entrepreneur such as yourself?
Yeah, so I just love learning, and and I love following rules. Because
Mm.
the joke about that is that my cousins, they still talk about me because I was the tattletale. I was the one that was like, we're not supposed to do that. Mama said, don't go there, don't do that. But I was the one. So they didn't invite me on a lot of their excursions. But anyway, I digressed just to say that if I'm given instructions, then
Mm.
I'm going to follow those instructions. And that's how I took school. I just took it as the teacher is saying to do this, so I would do it, and then I would get good grades. And as I got older, I that's when I realized it really is a gift. It really is a gift from God, because don't ask me to sing. There's some people that you can ask them to sing and they can just sing a beautiful song. There's people that can dance without needing instruction. There's
Mhm.
people that can pick up a musical instrument and just play a melodic song. I'm learning that those are gifts from God.
Mm.
So understanding technology particularly was where I started realizing my gift, because like social studies, trying to remember places, dates, things, that was not my gift. And other languages or whatever. So what really fostered it was a my physics teacher or my science teacher, and he would bring in different objects and different things to teach concepts. So that's when I realized I'm a really visual learner. For instance, he would teach mass, acceleration, velocity with match cars. The
Mm.
the old school, I don't know, you might be too young, but the tracks, he would bring in tracks and match cars, and have us try to relate which car would go down the track faster because it was heavy. He'd bring in bottles and show different fluids. So that just excited me about technology,
Mm.
to realize, to try to relate something tangible instead of just memorizing formulas and concepts. And I excelled. So I excelled in math and science, and as well as extracurricular. So because I was in cheerleading, track, drama, all of these other things, as well as had good grades, that's what awarded me the full scholarship to Howard University.
And not only that, to mention that you were also a very well-rounded individual with all those things you were interested in, and it wasn't like you kind of had to be in these things. I mean, I'm assuming you didn't have to be in these things. You kind of chose to be in these things,
Mhm.
and it made you more interesting and unique and well-rounded because you're also into science and STEM, but you also do cheerleading and you're into instruments as well.
Mhm.
And just by seeing the very many websites that you have and things that you're in, you've kind of stuck to yourself and you'd stay true to yourself throughout that whole journey of your life up until this point. We're talking from 1980s all the way to 2024. And
Right.
I think that it's really important to highlight the fact that a lot of people go through changes in life where they want to make the right decisions for themselves. You went and you talked about how you always want to follow and do the right thing. I had a wrestling coach that said he had a saying for this actually. He said, I never met anybody who does the right thing all the time and fails. And
Mm.
it seems that you've done the right thing for yourself. Obviously, there's a little bumps along the way. That's with
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm.
But you've really stayed true to yourself and done the right thing for you. For those people who maybe have difficulty trying to stick to something or maybe don't have faith in their capacities and capabilities, what kind of advice do you have for them, especially being somebody as well-rounded as yourself?
Well, first of all, I was kind of want to backtrack a little, because we talked about this. Now, I
Mhm.
did not stay on the straight and narrow
Yep.
all my life. Okay. So we started with where did I start? You start with a good foundation. And so, because I'll just start this simply, because I was raised in Lockport, New York, which is a predominantly white area, white neighborhood. I went to a very small amount of black students.
Mhm.
So to be able to go to Howard was I was like a kid in a candy store. You know, I was like, wow, all of these educated Black people and from all over the world. And it was a total different environment for me. And I did not stay on the straight and narrow when I went
Mhm.
to college. So I don't want to fool anybody on that one. And so what it was as you start, as your environment, as my, I won't say as you, because I've learned to just talk about myself, because there's
Yes.
enough going on with myself. As my environment changed, then my perspective, my options started changing, and I was making some wrong decisions. And so one of the wrong decisions was that I did end up getting pregnant my senior year in college. And by that time, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I have really gone off the path. And however, I did want in my plan, like when you think about your future, I did definitely want what my parents had. I wanted a good marriage and children and all of that. So having a child out of wedlock and early, it snapped me. It actually snapped me back into reality, where I had realized that, okay, I'm out of order here. And I truly think that God, I'm very faithful, that God actually allowed that to happen. It was a choice I made, but allowed that to happen to get me back on path, get me back on what I was supposed to be doing. Because had I kept going the route I was going, I don't think I would be as purposeful as I am. Because when you have a child and you have someone that you are responsible for, then it will snap you. It should snap you. It snapped me back into my purpose
Mm.
by having my child, which I'm so thankful that I did. So I didn't know if you
Mm.
want me to go further with that, but
Absolutely. No
okay.
worries. Um,
Oh, I know the one thing I was going to say. The point is that I did not let that mistake, because I never want to call him mistake. I just call him out of order. I never wanted that out of order circumstance uh, to deter me. And instead, I said, I do not want to be a statistic.
mhm.
So, what I meant by that is that I did not want to be yet another young Black single mother on any kind of social services or anything. So having my son motivated me even more to do what I needed to do. And I graduated. So I did, even though it was my senior year. His name is, I don't want to say his name because I don't know how
Mhm.
far this may go, but I'll just say Justin Timothy, because he
Mm.
was born just in time. So I won't give his full name.
I love that. I love that. And it is to mention that a lot of us go through some sort of trials and tribulations to get to where we need to. But to highlight the fact that you got there and that celebration is something very important to mention.
Hmm.
Not only that, after you had graduated, you also had a job at Hewlett Packard,
Hmm.
correct?
Yes.
And you were recruited straight out of college. Um,
Not straight. The little story with that is, remember, I was fully 9 months pregnant
mm,
my senior year. So when recruitment came around, I knew there was no way somebody's gonna recruit me 9 months pregnant. So thankfully, Howard University had um, you could you could still recruit, you could still come to the on campus 1 year
mhm.
after graduation. So thankfully, again, I just praise God for that. After I had my son, I came back home to Lockport, New York, and then I went back to Howard after, not being pregnant. And during the recruiting process, I disclosed to the recruiter, because he had said, it looks like you graduated last year. Why are you just now going through the recruiting process? And I said, frankly, sir, because I was 9 months pregnant and I don't think my odds would have been very good. And so he was impressed. He was impressed with the fact that I was able to keep my grades up. Now, it wasn't straight A's, in college, because like I said, I had my fun, but
Mhm.
I was able to keep my grades up to graduate and have my child. So he was impressed with that, and that's how I got my job with HP.
Wow. So having to deal with, after taking care of a child and having a job, you also traveled to Japan for
Mhm,
your job as well. What was it like? So now you're young Arba, you just graduated college, you just had a son,
mhm.
and you're traveling for a job. You're trying to wear all these hats too. How did you manage to do that?
Again, thankfully, all of this stuff. I don't know if this is a good time or not, but it's talking my book. But
Absolutely.
oh, okay. So I talk about this all in my book called Not Arbitrary.
Hmm.
And yes, there's the pun on my name. And it's my leaps of faith to a purposeful life because while I was going through it, I didn't notice it, but God had a plan all the time. And and I look back and I realize how everything was perfect. And that's what I want people to understand. Your life is not arbitrary. It's not just on whims. It's not when you meet people, like I'm sure Shaun, just by me acknowledging, that you're looking for someone for the podcast, everything has a purpose. It's up to us to figure out what it is. So to answer your question about Japan and how I did that being a single mother, when I got recruited to work for HP, and now here's the thing too, this was in California.
Mm.
So Washington D.C. is where Howard is. My parents are in New York, and so when I got recruited, and I said I'm going to California, and of course my parents were like, "Who do you know in California?" Nobody, But I got this job, and they're like, "Yeah, but you're a single mother, and why don't you leave the baby with us?" And and go and get settled. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not leaving my baby. I was like,
Mm.
God will make a way. And he did. So part of the recruitment process is that they had other employees at HP that were open to taking in students, new students, help them get acclimated to the area and to the company. And so, lo and behold, not a lo and behold, and not arbitrary, that the roommate they matched me with was another single mother,
Mm.
and she had a daughter that was about the same age as my son. And
Wow.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And um, so then I used the same daycare that she used because obviously she'd already vetted it and everything. And then to be able to travel, it wasn't a daycare, it was an in-home. So it was an in-home daycare. So that would allow me to be able to travel if I needed to because he could stay in the in-home daycare.
Wow. So you talk about things not being arbitrary, but I mean, I don't know. It's just for
No,
some people,
mhm. It's
for
not
some people,
arbitrary. If
for
you
some
don't
people who don't know the definition of arbitrary, arbitrary here based on Google says that based on random choice or personal whim rather than any reason or system. And you're saying that it's exactly the opposite.
I'm saying true, true. I'm saying that your life should not be arbitrary,
Mm.
and that's not what God intends. Actually, what I just want to read real quick what I have on the back of my book. Are you having a hard time figuring out your purpose in life? Are you living based on random choices or personal whims?
Mhm.
God created you, and He is the only one that can clearly help you achieve what he has already predestined for you. Don't live an arbitrary life. The Bible is God's business plan for you.
Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Bible.
Oh, I like
Yes.
that. I
It's how you live your life and fulfillment and everything like that. So
yes.
how you've already expressed it enough, but how much of a relief was it that you had somebody to relate to in the fact that they're in the similar life, they're living a similar life to you, and now you work with them, and you have your son, and they have their, was it a daughter or was it also
Her daughter.
a daughter?
Yes.
And you've got your paths crossed. For somebody who is maybe in this position,
Hmm.
being that they have their own job, they're a single mother, or they're going through some sort of familial responsibility as well as getting their life started.
Hmm.
How did you navigate through that? Because we're going to get into obviously what had happened before financially with you and why you started some of the companies that you started. But I kind of want to highlight really just that point, because there are a lot of people in this world that are young mothers, and
Hmm.
it's very difficult for them to go, especially because they're single. How did you get it done? Because again, you were still, even though you had some hard times, you were still consistent and you were still persistent. A lot of people may give up. How did you not give up?
Actually, you said the two magic words, persistent and consistent. I didn't give up because I looked at God's grace.
Mm,
Just to be honest, God's grace of the fact that I had gotten that far to be able to go to college. It was a full academic scholarship.
wow.
So, a couple of points again that you're just not gonna. When it blows my mind that at Howard, they got all the Greeks, they
Mhm.
got all the, and so I particularly had saw deltas on campus, and I wanted to pledge, and this was back in '86, so that was part of my full academic scholarship. I could not do anything to jeopardize my scholarship, and so the person that I was matched with was actually a Delta on top of it. So here it is that my whole opportunity that I thought I couldn't do in college. Now, so she was alumni. So there's alumni that you can pledge. So now, not only do I have my roommate, I did end up joining as an alumni. Now I have a whole sisterhood. So here
Wow.
I am in California. I didn't have any family in California, but now I have a whole sisterhood,
Mm,
and so um, to be able to be successful, uh, I didn't have a loan. Let's not forget that I did not have a student loan.
wow.
So I didn't have a student loan. I learned from the beginning because being in a sisterhood, I had a lot of connections. They were making connections. You need to know this person, you need to get to know that person, and someone advised me early on that to start saving
Mm,
and having life insurance and all of that, because so the beauty of it is when you do have a child young, then you have an earlier start with getting the right things prepared for your child, as well as thinking differently financially. So I started early with savings. I started early with 401k, life insurance, all of those things. I just had a whole different mindset.
wow. So, you'd say that you had support behind you in that case with the
Hmm.
sisterhood and able
Yes.
to, have somebody that you worked with in a similar position. Interesting.
Yeah. Well,
So,
at the same company, we did not have, she wasn't an engineer.
mm,
We never even saw each other on the job because
mm,
HP is a huge company. And I mean, obviously everybody knows that. There's different departments, different buildings. So no, we did not work together. It was just that she also worked at HP. And so she could just really helped me. I think what the purpose of that union was to really get me more in a sisterhood, to help me and to feel surrounded and supported in a different state across the
gotcha,
country.
gotcha. So I want to kind of jump a little bit. You hit hard times.
Yes.
We had this conversation. You really had hit hard times. You ran out of money. You made some bad decisions along the way.
Hmm.
was this around the time of myarba.com when you first came out with your first website, or VisionDoers, or what? Kind of walk us through what exactly had happened and how you came out of it.
Yeah. So as a lifetime high achiever. I've always been a high achiever. And again, the definition of a high achiever in my book is just somebody who takes instruction, takes a process, takes a system and just does it and applies it. Don't
Yeah.
make excuses, you just follow the formula. So I've always been that, and when at my career at HP, it just started soaring. I mean, I just kept getting promotion after promotion, and had actually gotten to the six figures with HP. And this was back in the 90s, in the late 90s. And so they were wanting to fast track or wanting to put me into management. And I was not interested in being in management. So
Hmm.
right around that time, my hairstylist, again, this is in the 80s, 90s, wanted a business card. She wanted something unique. And this was before Vistaprint, Canva. And she knew that at this time I was doing a marketing position at HP. She asked me to do some business cards. And I was like, sure, I could do some unique business cards. I did them for her. Then the other hairstylist wanted me to do business cards, but she was like, oh no, she's an engineer at HP, you know. But I saw a need. I was like, wow, this is, and I loved it. So this was back to my creative side was being challenged again.
Mm.
And so I started doing business cards, postcards, brochures, and whatever for the hairstylist. So then when on my job, when they kept pushing me more for management, and I did not want to do that, I didn't want that path of management. I was in my 30s, very successful, married. At that time, we had 5 children because my husband had 3. I had my 1, and then we had one together, mine, his, and ours. So blended family. That's a whole nother story. So blended
Mhm.
family, and discussed it with my husband. I had built up my business pretty good, and I just said, I'm going to do this full time. I'm going to do my business. So myarba.com came about when I did my resignation at HP. This was when the big .com boom was
Mhm.
back in the 90s. And I really didn't know. So they said, well, you know, because then the thought process of, well, what company are you going to, you know, and it wasn't like I was going to another company. So they said, where are you going? And I said, myarba.com. That was honestly, I'm going to I was just that cocky back then. So
Wow.
anyway, yeah. And so I was like, I'm going to myarba.com. And I self-taught myself how to do web design.
Mhm.
My husband and I decided to we both really didn't like California. That's where we
Mhm.
were living. It was very high price. We decided to go to Atlanta. Didn't know, we really didn't have any ties, didn't know anyone in Atlanta, but I felt I could just use the same formula, find a good hairstylist, do her marketing, have it go viral, if you will, and it worked. So what happened was, I'm young, aggressive, and I'm thinking like, oh, this is easy. Just to, I could just do this, and no steady income. And I did not learn. Cause at that time I had 401k, stock options, savings. Because remember, I told you I
Mhm.
learned that early, and I
Yeah.
had all of that. And I was like, oh, I can figure out this entrepreneur thing here in Atlanta, and didn't separate my personal from my business finances. And I was just paying for this, paying for that, trying to figure it out, and not telling my husband. And money just started dwindling. And I kept thinking, oh,
Wow.
this next thing, this is what's gonna, because I was successful, but everybody wants to grow. And I didn't, I was trying to do it on my own. And eventually it got to the point our 4,000 square foot home in Atlanta was foreclosed, car repossessed, and I
Wow.
lost my
Exactly. The
I
pages of
was giving people more than YouTube knowledge. And so they kept saying, "How do you know so much?" And I said, "Because I've been through so much."
mm,
And so again, I started feeling that God was calling. This time it was different. I
mm,
really felt God's calling, that there are people who are going through what I went through, and I could help them to avoid losing everything trying to achieve your dreams. And so that's what pulled me back out, but it's a whole different purpose of it. It's like I'm not highlighting that I'm like going to my.com. It's really that's how VisionDoers came about, is that I'm looking for people that have a clear vision and will do what it takes to achieve that. And it's a free resource to help them to understand all the different elements of running a business.
mm. I think it's good to mention too that when you do, for those people who do start their own business, one of the first things that may run into is financial troubles, and you will most likely run out of everything at some point, and that is a given, especially for those of you in the audience that are getting ready to start your own business. On top of balancing the life and responsibilities that you have, now you have a whole nother child. That's what I like to refer to business as a child, because you do have to take care of it. It is always something to do.
Yes.
And do not, I would say, to highlight, especially what you implied, is that you don't just want to give up because things have hit the fan. There are things that have hit the fan for Arba and myself when we're trying to start our businesses, but you just continuously persist and be consistent, and then things do kind of fall into plan. It is not arbitrary. It's almost, what would you call it? I would almost say vibrational in a way, because they
Hmm.
happen at
Hmm.
such an instance in which it was like, it
Hmm.
was good timing. It may not be your timing, but it's good timing,
Hmm.
God's timing.
Yes.
And it's really important to note that that only happens when you don't give up. You
Right.
just ask, and it always starts, in my opinion, how I like to look at it is because it's very hard to not give up on
Hmm.
things. It always starts with a question, like, what happens if I don't? What
Hmm.
happens if I do continue to do those things?
Hmm.
And for you, a lot of people will have their families that help them. Some people who don't have their families to help them in businesses.
Hmm.
It's kind of a stretch, but your family helped you get you back on your feet. What some advice do you have for people who maybe don't have the same or similar support system as you, trying to get back on their feet? Are there resources out there for them that they
Oh,
can use?
yeah, there's a lot of
Family?
resources. And first I want to say I did give up. I did. I
Okay.
went through a whole depression. I was like, I don't want nothing to do with business. Just give me a 9 to 5. And so even if you do give up, and since we're talking a little bit about faith, the size of a mustard seed, and just that little light. So even though I gave up, mentally or whatever, if you just got a little bit of inkling, then God is still going to send you resources, send you, something that's going to spark. All you need is just a little, little spark, something to get you going again. But even though I had given up, so oh my goodness, there's so many resources. Score.org. I really recommend them. They're nationwide. You can find a mentor by phone, email, video, or in person. The SBA, which Small Business Association, and if you just look, just Google. Oh my goodness, what is there? There's other thing. Alice, I think, is another one. I'm finding, and they're not giving me no credit for this, but
Mhm.
but there are more resources than you think.
Mhm.
Just look for them.
We
And
also have to, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we
no.
also have to mention too, not only are there financial resources, there are also databases, Alignable.
Yes.
LinkedIn, places
Yes.
where you can connect to get to the right people, because it's really important to mention that when you reach a certain point in a success and you know a lot of people, say you do hit these pitfalls, when you have good people behind you, it's very hard to get back to where you were when you fell at that lowest, because people who are there for you and have helped you won't let you get that low. And it's
Mhm.
important to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, but also
Yes.
people who you can really trust and care about it. Because again, that's something that was not mentioned but implied, is that, having those good people around you. I can't express this enough from my own experiences. Having a good support system is super, super important. In fact, it's the lifeline of your
Yes.
business, especially because there are the most dedicated, driven, psychopathic almost people who
Ye-
start businesses, and they get a little shaky and they're like,
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
So it's important that you give yourself and you surround yourself with the tools necessary to do these things, preventative and even during it. My friend said something that was really, really important yesterday. I was talking to him and I was telling him about how I had this whole idea. I was like, how I had all these ideas. I wanted to start another startup while doing this startup. And it can be addicting. Starting startups
Yes.
can be
It's
addicting.
addicting.
It is.
Yes.
And it's really, and he said something that was really important. I said, well, I want to do this business. This is my forefront. This is my plan A. And then he goes, okay, well, what's your plan B? I said, oh, well, that's, my podcast. My podcast is what I want to do. And this is exactly, that's what I'm gonna do on the side. He goes, okay, but what's your plan C? And I said, I didn't really think about my plan C at all. I'm gonna be straight up, like, I was so excited
Hmm.
about starting these startups that I didn't ever think about that I was going to fail. It wasn't the fact that I was being naive. I was just super
Right.
energetic and I wasn't going to let myself down. And he's like, "Well, that's good to know. Yes, that's right, but the most important thing you can't control, or not even control, but the thing you can't predict is people." Right?
Mhm.
Because
Right.
people will make or break your company. Ones you hire, ones you fire, ones you come in
Your
contact with,
clients, even.
and you can't even predict what they're going to do. People are
Yeah.
good on paper. Some people are so it's very important, very, very important that it's not about predicting people, but it's about making sure that you have these good foundational relationships with people, but not most importantly, that you have a good foundational relationship with yourself in
Yes.
doing these types of things.
Yes.
So
And,
that's one thing I would highlight.
yeah. And the other thing too is because I don't want people to think that it was my parents. My parents, yes, they
Yeah,
are good support system, but
for
my
sure.
parents are old school
Hmm.
in that they would have rather me keep a job.
Yes,
So
that's
they
true.
keep a good job. That was their thing. Keep a good job. It was exactly what you said, Shaun. It was my network. When I started meeting people, other entrepreneurs, then that network is what pulled me back out and
Hmm.
said that I can do this again. But yeah,
Yeah,
my
no, I do want to highlight it's not like her parents are the ones that were the game savers. It's
right,
it's help.
right.
And the same with anybody else. It's not like one person does everything and everybody kind of comes together, but it is important to have a good network behind you.
Yes,
Let's
your
see. Well,
tribe,
yeah,
as
we
people say.
we kind of got off on our topic a little bit here, but can tell us what a little bit about Vision Doers. You're
Mhm.
helping entrepreneurs. We did get into the whole conversation. If you do hit hard times, not even if you hit hard times, but if you just need help starting up, getting that ball rolling is the hardest part
Yes,
of
yes.
starting a business. How can people get the ball rolling?
Yeah, because my thing really with Vision Doers is I want to help people avoid the hard times. It's
Hmm.
what you don't know is how you end up like I did, and I don't want anybody to ever end up like that. So Vision Doers, we meet on Zoom every Tuesday, 5 p.m. It's free. Again, I'm either teaching marketing principles. It's a very engaging conversation. It's not just a presentation. And then I'll also have guest speakers that will talk about personal, financial, professional. That's what I call it. Personal, financial, professional development, and it's an opportunity to network and create that tribe. So it's like everything that we just talked about. That's what Vision Doers is. VisionDoers.com.
I love that. I love that. As we are coming closer to the end of our time, I do kind of want to wrap this up by just asking you, how can we reach you? How can people get in contact with Arba Cooper? You have such an amazing story. Not only do you have an amazing story, you have amazing resources to help people who are in a similar position as you. If I'm an entrepreneur and I don't know how to get the ball rolling, how, well, we already answered that question. If I'm an entrepreneur and I need business help,
Uh-huh.
who should how can you help me?
Well, first, the easiest thing, and I challenge anyone, if you just go on Google and put in Arba Cooper, just put in Arba Cooper. You're
Mm,
going to see the whole first, second, third page because I've been at this since the 90s.
yes.
Okay. So of course I've registered my own domain, Arba Cooper, arbacooper.com. That's going to mainly highlight my book, but then there's other links. Because see, here's my problem. Not a problem, but I mean, I'm a web designer.
Hmm.
So I have probably like 15 websites. So I don't, and they're all my babies. So, but all of them kind of branch off to different ones. So, and another one is just Arba DT. DT stands for digital technologist.
Hmm.
And that's like my most recent baby. But it's, I don't ever want to highlight any one, but all of them, all roads will still lead to Arba.
Good. Good. Well, Arba Cooper, it was amazing talking to you today. I hope that my guests will reach out to you and, or not my guests, my audience will reach out to you, and that I wish you the most best success, especially for those people who were in a similar position or are in a similar position. It's important to note that you're not alone. There are
Right.
resources out there. You
Yes.
just have to take a leap of faith. And always remember too that it's not the fact that somebody said something on Instagram that I'm going to finish this up with, but they were talking about how it's never going to be, actually, I'll just do this. I'll leave you with a quote. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to leave you with a quote. A lot of times in life, we look for that perfect moment. We look for that perfect timing, right? That perfect timing is never going to be there. It's never going to be a perfect decision. It's going to be a decision made perfect by you. Once you take that first step and you keep walking and walking and walking up that hill, eventually people will start coming to you and they'll see that you're working. It's about being proactive, being accountable, but most importantly, never giving up. And you will hit hard times. You may want to, just don't. I'm sorry, it's that simple. But other than that, I really appreciate the time that you've given me today, Arba. Hopefully people, I'm going to put your tags and everything up here so people can see you and reach out to you. But it was a pleasure. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Elephant in the Room. We will see you next time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Shaun.